There's no doubt that Godzilla is one of the most dominant pop culture icons of all time. This kaiju has managed to fascinate audiences across generations, its unique set of powers and atomic biology. While there have been many theories that explain his powers, atomic breath, and overall thermonuclear biology, a lot of them are speculative, fan-generated, or only hinted at in the movies. However, today, we've compiled all of this information to form a well-rounded theory around this mighty kaiju's anatomy, so without further ado, let's jump right into it and explore Godzilla's atomic biology in detail. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The science behind Godzilla's atomic biology. Some fans have likened Godzilla to a living nuclear reactor, and the simplest way to explain his atomic biology is that he uses some atomic energy to sustain his bodily functions while radiating some of it through his fins. However, an excess of such atomic energy can result in him losing control, and he has to expel all of this energy in the form of atomic breath. Of course, this is just a surface-level explanation behind his biology, and we'll now try to break it down further. Godzilla's atomic breath was first introduced in the 1950s as a glowing blue beam that destroys everything in its path. In fact, some theories suggest that his blazing hot breath averages at a temperature of at least 36,000 degrees Fahrenheit or more, which is about 4 times hotter than the surface of the sun. In the real world, such immense heat can only be generated in the field of nuclear physics, processes such as fusion or fission. Godzilla's body is powered by nuclear fission, wherein he produces nuclear reactions wherein two nuclei, or a nucleon and a subatomic particle, collide in his body. This creates several nucleides in his body and creates deadly radiation, which continues to increase pressure until it bursts through his mouth in the form of atomic breath. This breath is the result of the accumulated heat from nuclear fission, as it often becomes too much for him and he needs to expel it in some form. In standard physics, it's nearly impossible to create fission in a living body without instant cellular meltdown, DNA obliteration, or internal organ destruction. Even though Godzilla may be immune to such radiation, it's still challenging for him to store all that nuclear energy in his body, and he has no option but to expel it through his atomic breath. Godzilla also has the ability to activate this nuclear reaction on command. It is then stored in his spines until he finally expels it through his mouth, as per most theories. According to canon, Godzilla has a bionuclear circulatory system that's typically activated when he feels threatened, triggering a neutron flux, travels to his back spines, and all the way to the nucleosynthetic throat chambers, ultimately exploding and taking the form of atomic breath. Many theories also suggest that at least the Shin Godzilla's body was created with specialized organs designed to store, absorb, and utilize radiation, which enables him to feed on all kinds of radioactive materials, use these to fuel his rapid regeneration and atomic breath. All these theories have also gotten fans wondering if it's possible to store such intense energy within a biological body. This would require a massive nuclear reactor that can store such radioactive material, regulate the building pressure, release it in controlled directional explosions. This would also take up a whole bunch of fuel. If you observe closely, Godzilla typically resorts to feeding on all kinds of radioactive waste to sustain himself, continue surviving in the movies. He feeds on nuclear energy, bomb radiation, submarines, even the Earth's core to keep going. While this isn't a scientifically accurate solution, it is definitely creative storytelling, makes him even more interesting. Thermonuclear physiology, internal systems, and heat regulation. Many fans have often wondered how he manages to cool himself down and regulate such intense heat. As it turns out, his scaly hide plays an important role in managing his internal radiation levels. His dermis consists of dermal exchangers, which are essentially specialized glands that can vent any surplus radiation, takes the form of low-level heat and luminescence. This process can be spotted in scenes where his dorsal plates are glowing blue or white, which means that the exchangers are actively working towards radiative cooling in order to maintain homeostasis and ensure that he doesn't overheat. In one particular instance, in Godzilla vs. Kong, we spot the mighty kaiju recharging himself at an ancient temple that was linked to an energy source, suggests that he can tap into the Earth's source. He also seems to have some energy reserve or nuclear battery, helps him store energy in case of scarcity. Some fans have also wondered how he manages to keep himself from exploding due to such intense radiation. There are many reasons behind this. First of all, he has advanced shielding poisoning on a cellular level, and some theories even suggest that his cells might be lined with lead tissues to prevent any radiation damage. Another key reason behind him not exploding is that he manages to convert this energy into usable power in the form of a bioreactor. Finally, his dorsal plates act like cooling towers and get rid of any excess heat to prevent him from bursting. In this way, his body is essentially a well-established nuclear ecosystem that takes care of all processes ranging from turning radiation to usable energy to dispelling excess energy through atomic breathing, even protecting him from overheating. While he typically expels excess radiation, Shin Godzilla introduced us to a new process as his atomic breath worked in stages. It started out as a gas that heats up, ignites into flame, and eventually becomes increasingly heated to the point where it can be perceived as a beam of pure plasma. The entire procedure is quite spooky. Godzilla Minus One also had another instance where his dorsal plates jutted out, played the role of cooling rods in a nuclear reactor. He then sucked in a lot of oxygen to jumpstart the fission, while the spikes slammed back down and caused a nuclear reaction. When the radioactive fissile material went nuclear, he had no choice but to blast it out of his mouth. Atomic breath, mechanism, physics, and realism. Godzilla's atomic breath typically takes the form of a tightly focused beam. Sometimes his blasts are riddled with far more radiation than the rest. In such cases, it would burst in every direction. There is very limited information on whether his atomic breath is full of steam, vapor, or even spit. In recent movies, his blasts take the form of laser-like beams, which are processed through his bionuclear reactor, specialized organs that store uranium-235. Most Godzilla movies, his atomic breath is either blue or green in color. Bluish blast has quite some meaning to it. Most energy blasts take the form of shock waves or thermal radiation, but Godzilla's atomic breath doesn't actually cause the same kind of blast wave-like damage. In all atomic blasts, there's a small percentage of energy that comes from ionizing radiation, which is essentially radiation with the energy to knock electrons out of atoms, completely obliterate molecular machinery such as DNA. When some gases are ionized, they sometimes emit bluish-greenish light. This signature shade of Godzilla's atomic blast means that he's expelling enough radiation to cause the air to give up its photons and create an unimaginable destructive environment. Radiation as sustenance, feeding, and regeneration. Godzilla's internal system is said to be made of specialized organs that can absorb, store, and utilize radiation. This essentially means that he can sustain himself by feeding on radioactive waste, as his body is capable of processing it, converting it into energy. In the 2014 Godzilla movie, we could see him feed on nuclear submarines. A scene in King of the Monsters depicted him getting supercharged by a nuke. If this wasn't enough, a scene in Godzilla vs. Kong quite literally shows him drilling into the earth to gain power through the planet's energy core. He can even feed on radioactive waves. It's quite intriguing how all this radiation can be processed internally, a way that supports his rapid regeneration and adaptation. In case of injury, Godzilla can also process the stored radioactive energy to heal himself. While he already has an impressive set of regenerative abilities, they are further enhanced through radiation exposure. In this way, processes such as tissue regeneration are accelerated. He can bounce back in battles against other mighty creatures in no time. Evolution of Godzilla's atomic abilities. Godzilla's atomic breath is his key characteristic, and it has evolved quite a bit over the course of his story arc in the 1954 Godzilla, Monsterverse, finally Godzilla Minus One. When Godzilla first debuted all the way back in 1954, his atomic breath was described as a fog machine, and it resembled the smoke that had lingered over the ruins of Hiroshima and Nagasaki aftermath of World War II. While this version of atomic breath isn't as flashy or dramatic, it had the ability to melt steel structures, which was still quite impressive until 1962, King Kong vs. Godzilla was released as the first color film in the franchise. At this point, they decided to make the atomic breath slightly bluish, which soon became the trademark. This bluish hue was explained as a result of charged particles moving faster than the speed of light. Shade remained consistent until the end of the Showa era. Towards the end, films like Mothra vs. Godzilla and Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, introduced the atomic breath in a slightly lighter shade with a hint of the misty blue of the original film's Godzilla. In 1967, Son of Godzilla was the first film to feature the atomic breath in the form of a laser-like heat ray electric blue tint. This look was consistent until Godzilla vs. Megalon in 1973, which had an atomic blue breath. Showa era wrapped up with Terra of Mechagodzilla, which went back in time to revisit the white atomic breath. 1984, Turn of Godzilla marked the beginning of the Heisei era. We saw the atomic breath evolve into a much more intense beam. By 1991, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah turned the atomic breath into a a spiral heat spray capable of destroying one of Ghidorah's heads looked the same as the traditional Blue Breath addition of an electric purple signature. By 1993, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 introduced the hyper-uranium red heat ray. Over the course of the Heisei era, this heat ray was upgraded and got some electrical spirals as well as a red-orange glow. 1999, Millennium era of Godzilla revived his character with an orange atomic breath capable of cutting through his opponent's bodies as if it were butter. However, this didn't go on for long, as atomic breath soon reverted to its original blue by the time Godzilla Final Wars was released. Finally, Toho launched the Reiwa era with the release of Godzilla in 2016, wherein his atomic breath went through a series of changes. It started out with smoke and fire that soon turned into a violet beam. This version of the atomic breath was scary as well as short-lived. 2017, Toho and Netflix came together to create a Godzilla trilogy, where his atomic breath once again took the form of a blue energy beam. In the 2021 Godzilla Singular Point, Godzilla's heat ray turned into an atomic ring that formed around his mouth, eventually took the form of his traditional laser blast. Finally, 2023 live-action film Godzilla Minus One depicted the atomic breath in its traditional bluish hue, a minor upgrade of being more powerful and explosive than before. Real-world parallels and speculation. Finally, breaking down the science behind Godzilla's atomic breath got us all wondering if human biology could ever achieve such feats. Moreover, are there any animals or real-world science experiments that have attempted to achieve this? As it turns out, one would need a source of radiation, radium-235, to make this possible. However, radium-235 isotope is present on Earth in limited quantities, and it's quite challenging to imagine atomic breath being a naturally occurring phenomenon. Of course, this would be more plausible if the Earth had higher reserves of uranium-235, but currently may be found in rocks in limited numbers. There are no reptiles or lizards that eat rocks, but there are some chickens that do swallow small rocks and then store them in their gizzards. The gizzard is an organ specific to bird anatomy, helps them grind up these stones and crush these uranium-rich rocks. While the chances of atomic-breathing chickens aren't exact likely, we can definitely apply this theory to fiction, wonder if Godzilla also has a gizzard-like organ that powers his bionuclear reactor. However, this would mean that he would constantly have to feed on rocks in order to sustain himself, and that's just far too many rocks for him to consume. Comparatively, his current system of feeding on radioactive waste seems far more convenient. We can conclude that he might not need any gizzard-like organs the same way that birds need them to survive. Marvelous verdict! And with that, we've explored some of the most interesting facts about Godzilla's atomic anatomy, ranging from his thermonuclear biology to the science behind his blast's bluish-green colors. We hope this video gave you some insight into the inner workings of this mighty kaiju's specialized organs. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. While you're down there, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Have a marvelous day.